Among the many civic groups that will be very concerned about this 2016 budget is the South African Catholic Bishops' Conference. And with me in the studio today, I have the liaison officer of the Catholic Parliamentary Liaison Office, Mike Pothier. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Terry.
You are concerned about the budget, I take it? Or concerned what it might contain or might not contain?
Yes, we're concerned, I think, about two things. The one is the kind of facts and figures, what's going to happen with taxes, what's going to happen with social grants. Obviously, the minister has to tighten the government belt in various ways, and a lot of people are calling for reductions in government expenditure. Easiest way sometimes to do that is to cut back on things like social grants, but that affects poor people. So we'd be watching it for its kind of social impact, if you like.
This would include VAT, I take it?
Yeah, I think we'd be pretty disappointed if there was a rise in VAT, because it tends to be a regressive tax, and it hurts poor people a lot more than it hurts middle class and wealthy people. So
but this is an election year, so do you just think it's possible?
It's not impossible, but I think it's unlikely, and let's hope that we're proved right there. The other level, of course, is the question of trust and confidence, and that took a huge knock back in December with the firing of Minister Nene. We saw the rand fall through the floor. For us, it's not so much a question of sort of investor confidence and overseas confidence in the international institutions, but what it says to our own people and to our own country about the way that our finances are being run, and what was behind the dismissal of Mr. Nene. There was something very fishy about it, to be frank, and that has to be addressed in this budget. He's got to get the economic management of the country back on the rails.
And up till now, I mean, there's not been the case at all. I mean, we've had a situation stemming, I would argue, from 1996, with a series of budgets that have basically have been trickled down. They've talked in terms of growth leading to redistribution, but the redistribution has never happened, has it?
The redistribution hasn't really happened to the extent that one wanted it to happen. I think we must give government a lot of credit for the social grant program, though. They've stuck to that over the years. They've expanded it in various ways, and that's something that the Catholic Church has certainly been pushing for a lot. And we're happy with that. You always want it to be more, but we understand that there are those constraints.
Well, you have said that they should start with themselves, so I take it, we have now arguably the largest cabinet in the world, with ministers and deputy, 35 ministers, a president and deputy president. Yeah. Would you start there?
I think that's a very good place to start, because there seems to be such a lot of duplication. We've got 5 or 6 ministries that are dealing mainly with economic issues. So that could be rationalized a lot. A number of ministries in which there are 2 deputy ministers, for example. So there's no reason why we should have 70-something ministers and deputy ministers when countries like the UK and Australia and so on get by with cabinets of 20 people.
So if you were the finance minister today, that's where you would start? And is there any idea of how you would start, or where you would?
I don't think we can
how far you would cut it?
I don't think we can expect the finance minister to cut the size of the cabinet. I hope he's arguing that to the president. That's probably as much as he can do. I would want him to do something slightly different, and that is to institute a very thorough review of the boards and the senior management in all the parastatals and the state-owned enterprises, to make sure that the people that are running those are really qualified to do so. They're not people who've been appointed for political reasons or out of cronyism or because they favor certain families or whatever. I think we're losing a huge amount of money in this country to that kind of corruption, and that would be a huge signal, a positive signal, that, as I say, the management of the economy, as far as government can manage the economy, is being put back on the tracks.
And that has also undermined, actually, the whole spirit, surely, of the equity law, because that did not state that just because someone came from a disadvantaged background, they should be placed there. It was the person who was best qualified, and if you had 2 or 3 people, the one from the disadvantaged background should get it. And what you're saying is that has not happened.
That has not happened, and to make it worse, in a certain sense, we have various political elites that are now benefiting from their closeness to major political players. That, again, is completely inequitable, and it undermines the equity efforts.
Well, you said that you wouldn't imagine that the finance minister would talk of cutting the cabinet at this stage. However, he has cut finger food and various other, well, said he would. In the last budget, as I recall, there was also talk of cutting back on government expenditure, but it doesn't seem to have happened.
Well, I don't know that how accurate the records have been. I know that, for example, at the State of the Nation address this year, there was a significant cutback in budget. For some reason, somehow or other, SONA used to cost 9 million rands to put on. Can't imagine how that was spent. But this year it came down to 3.5. So that's symbolically an important thing. And if Mr. Gordhan can get it right to get government officials and ministers to fly economy class, to cut down on the number of cars and the size of cars and so on, it's not going to save us billions and billions, but it's going to send the right messages all the way down the line in government and hopefully also across into the private sector and other areas of society, that we can all tighten our belts effectively and in that way of working together bring about improvements.
And that would also, you think, placate the ratings agencies and the great international lenders such as the IMF and World Bank?
Again, they're going to look at the bottom line. They're going to look at the hard figures when they make their decisions. But I don't believe that they're immune from a kind of emotional approach as well. If they see government trying to make the right efforts and, to repeat myself, sending the right signals, I would expect that they're going to respond to that. And really all that it takes, I think, at the moment, is that we stave off a downgrade and buy some time to get growth back on track, to get beyond the drought, hopefully to see the commodity cycle start to pick up. If we can do that this year, then I think that we have a much brighter future.
And it must be more than symbolic. I mean, for example, I recall many years ago, Julius Nyerere, when president of Tanzania, driving around in a VW, a little Beetle,
Yeah.
and saying that ministers should do the same.
Right, and we know the former president of Uruguay did the same sort of thing.
And so did Thomas Sankara in
Yeah.
Burkina Faso.
I'm not holding my breath to see that happening here, but you certainly don't need a top-of-the-range BMW, and you certainly don't need two of them.
Well, that brings us down to, of course, the two parliaments, but that's another matter to
Yeah.
discuss as well. Mike, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure, Terry.
Thank you.